Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ready for a wild ride? We're going deep into the history of Bitcoin today.
Buckle up, it's a fascinating story.
It really is. We're talking booms, busts, and everything in between. Let's rewind all the way back to 2008.
2008.
The world was in a financial crisis. Remember, trust in the system was, well, it was pretty much gone.
Yeah, not a great time.
And then, out of the blue, this white paper appears online. Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The author, the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto.
It's crazy, right? We still don't know who Satoshi really is.
The ultimate internet mystery. Some say it was a lone genius, others think it was a group. What do you think?
Honestly, I go back and forth. But one thing's for sure. Satoshi, whoever they are, introduced a revolutionary concept, a decentralized digital currency.
Free from governments and banks, it was radical.
And then, just a year later, in 2009, we have the Genesis block. The very first block of the Bitcoin blockchain is mined.
I love that story. And they even embedded a headline about bank bailouts right in the code.
Talk about a statement. It was a clear message. Bitcoin was here to offer an alternative.
It's like a time capsule of that moment in history. Okay, we have to talk about the 10,000 Bitcoin pizzas. This is classic.
Oh man, that story.
Back in 2010, someone bought 2 pizzas with 10,000 Bitcoins, a totally normal transaction back then.
Can you imagine if they held on to those Bitcoins? We'd be talking hundreds of millions of dollars today.
I know, right? It's mind-blowing. But even beyond the price, Bitcoin was starting to catch people's attention. It represented something different, a break from the norm.
Absolutely. And then there's the technology behind it all. Blockchain.
Ah, blockchain. It's more than just cryptocurrency. This decentralized, transparent ledger has so much potential.
It's crazy to think about all the possibilities. We're talking everything from supply chains to voting systems to healthcare.
I know. And if you want to explore more about blockchain and other fascinating topics, check out https://rankspodcast.buzzsprout.com. We've got tons of deep dives waiting for you.
Okay, back to Bitcoin. As it gained popularity, so did its price volatility. 2013, remember. The price hits $1,000 for the first time.
That was a huge milestone. Suddenly, everyone was talking about Bitcoin, but there were challenges ahead. In 2014, Mt. Gox, the biggest Bitcoin exchange at the time, collapses.
That was a tough blow. It raised a lot of questions about security and regulation.
It showed that this new technology was still, finding its footing.
Yeah.
But even with that setback, Bitcoin showed its resilience.
For sure. Developers kept working, new exchanges popped up with better security, and the community never lost faith.
And that faith paid off. By 2016, Bitcoin had bounced back, trading above $1,000 again. It was clear Bitcoin wasn't going anywhere.
And then comes 2017. Things get really wild.
Oh yeah, the crypto gold rush. Prices went through the roof. By December, Bitcoin was almost at $20,000.
I remember it like it was yesterday. Everyone was talking about Bitcoin. It was on the news, at dinner parties, everywhere.
It felt like the world had woken up to the power of crypto. But there was a lot of hype too.
Definitely. There was so much speculation, and not everyone understood the risks. And of course, what goes up
must come down. 2018 was a reality check for a lot of people. The price crashed, wiping out billions.
It was a tough lesson for many. But for those who truly believed in Bitcoin, it was a chance to buy the dip and hold on tight.
And hold on they did, because what happened next is even more incredible.
That's for the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with the wild ride of Bitcoin from 2020 to today and what it all means for the future of finance.
Welcome back.
Where were we? Ah, yes, Bitcoin was picking itself up after the 2018 crash.
Right. And then, bam, early 2020, a global pandemic.
The world kind of stopped, didn't it? Everything felt uncertain.
Totally. And global markets, they freaked out. Even Bitcoin took a hit at first.
That's surprising. You'd think during a crisis, people would turn to alternative assets like Bitcoin.
You would, wouldn't you? But when panic sets in, people want cash. They were selling everything to cover losses.
So even Bitcoin, often seen as a safe haven, wasn't immune to that initial shock.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Bitcoin bounced back and fast. By the end of 2020, it was not only back to pre-pandemic levels, it was breaking records.
That's a heck of a recovery. What drove that? Is just the market rebounding or something more?
It was a perfect storm, really. Think about it. The pandemic exposed the flaws in our traditional financial systems. Governments were printing money like crazy. Inflation was on everyone's minds.
I see where you're going with this. Suddenly, Bitcoin starts looking like a hedge against inflation, like digital gold.
Bingo. And then you had institutional adoption kicking in. Big names like MicroStrategy and Square were adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets.
Well, that's a big deal. It's like the mainstream was starting to take Bitcoin seriously.
Right. It was becoming a legitimate asset class. And then, of course, there's Elon Musk. Love him or hate him, he's a force in the crypto world.
Yeah, his tweets about Bitcoin, especially when Tesla started accepting it as payment, sent shockwaves through the market.
He knows how to move the needle, that's for sure. All those factors, the pandemic, institutional interest, and the Musk effect, it all fueled Bitcoin's incredible 2021 run.
It hit a new all-time high, right? Over $60,000?
Yep. It was euphoric. But amidst all the excitement, there were some bumps in the road. Tesla actually suspended Bitcoin payments, remember? Environmental concerns over Bitcoin mining were a big factor.
Oh yeah, the energy consumption debate. That's been a constant theme, hasn't it? It also highlighted just how volatile the crypto market can be. Bitcoin's price pulled back from its peak.
True. It was a reality check reminding everyone that Bitcoin, for all its potential, is still a young asset. Ups and downs are part of the game.
But even with the swings, things are looking good. PayPal jumped in, making it easier for everyday people to use Bitcoin. The idea of Bitcoin as a legitimate payment method was gaining traction.
For sure. And it wasn't just about Bitcoin anymore. This period saw an explosion of new cryptocurrencies and blockchain innovations.
DeFi, right. Decentralized finance. I remember that becoming a huge buzzword.
DeFi was, and still is, incredibly exciting. It's all about recreating financial services on the blockchain, cutting out the middleman.
More control for individuals. That's powerful stuff. And then there were NFTs, non-fungible tokens. 2021 was the year of the NFT, it felt like.
No, absolutely. Suddenly, everyone was buying and selling digital art, collectibles, even virtual real estate, all using blockchain.
It was like the internet was reinventing itself, wasn't it? But let's be real, with innovation comes disruption. And the crypto world had its share in 2022. Remember the Terra Luna stablecoin collapse?
Oh yeah, that was rough. It sent shockwaves through the whole market.
A stark reminder that not all crypto projects are created equal.
Big time. Due diligence is crucial in this space. And then, of course, we have the FTX scandal. Talk about shaking things up.
That one really hurt. The implosion of FTX was a massive blow to the industry. Trust took a hit, and regulators were paying attention. It felt like a big step backward after so much progress.
No doubt. Transparency and accountability are crucial, especially in a space that's all about decentralization and trust.
You know, speaking of exploring new horizons, I have to remind our listeners about https://rankspodcast.buzzsprout.com. We've got deep dives on everything from blockchain and DeFi to NFTs and the metaverse. It's worth checking out.
Totally. But back to our story. 2022 was a tough year for crypto, but 2023 brought a sense of, I don't know, maybe a fresh start.
I felt it too, like a renewed energy. And there were some big wins. The first Bitcoin futures ETF was approved in the U.S.
Huge milestone. That opened the door for traditional investors to get involved in a more regulated way.
Bitcoin was becoming more and more mainstream. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. China cracked down hard on crypto.
Yeah, that was a blow. But on the flip side, you had countries like El Salvador taking a totally different approach, embracing Bitcoin and making it legal tender.
That was bold, wasn't it? El Salvador's Bitcoin experiment has been fascinating to watch.
Definitely a turning point. And we can't forget ordinals, NFTs built on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Another example of how this space just keeps innovating. So much was happening.
Right. The pace of change is relentless. But then 2024 rolls around and we get another game changer. Spot Bitcoin ETFs in the U.S.
That was huge. Investors could now directly own Bitcoin through a regulated investment vehicle. It made things so much easier.
And the response? Explosive. Billions of dollars flowed into those ETFs. Institutional investors were clearly hungry for Bitcoin.
It's amazing to think about it. Bitcoin went from this fringe experiment to a trillion-dollar asset class.
It's a wild story, and it's far from over. Bitcoin's price is surging, but the question is why and what happens next.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From Bitcoin's mysterious beginnings to its wild ride to Wall Street.
It's been quite a journey, and we're still trying to figure out where it's all headed.
Exactly. What does the future hold for Bitcoin? That's the million-dollar question, or maybe the trillion-dollar question at this point.
Haha, right. It's tough to predict the future, especially in the crypto world. Things change so fast.
That's for sure. But we can look at the trends, right?
Yeah.
Try to make sense of where things are going.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest trends we've seen is institutional adoption. More and more traditional financial players are getting into Bitcoin.
Hedge funds, pension funds, even big banks are starting to dip their toes in.
The spot Bitcoin ETFs were a game changer. Suddenly, it was much easier for institutional investors to get exposure to Bitcoin.
And all that capital flowing in. It's definitely had an impact on the price.
No doubt about it. But it also raises some interesting questions. Some people worry that this institutional involvement could undermine Bitcoin's original vision.
That makes sense. Bitcoin was supposed to be about decentralization, individual empowerment, right?
Exactly. So it's almost like Bitcoin is at a crossroads. Can it be both a symbol of rebellion and a mainstream asset?
It's a fascinating dilemma. Maybe it's not an either situation. Maybe there's room for both.
I think so. Institutional money can bring stability and legitimacy, while the technology itself can continue to evolve in a decentralized way.
It's a delicate balance to strike. Speaking of evolving technology, what are some of the innovations that have you excited?
I'm really interested in layer 2 solutions, like the Lightning Network. They're tackling Bitcoin's scalability problem head on.
You've mentioned the Lightning Network before. Can you break it down for our listeners who might not be familiar with it?
Sir, imagine a network built on top of Bitcoin that allows for almost instant transactions with super low fees.
So it's like a side road that bypasses the main highway, making things faster and more efficient.
Exactly. Not every transaction needs to be recorded on the main Bitcoin blockchain. The Lightning Network handles those smaller, everyday payments.
That could be a game changer for making Bitcoin a more practical payment option. Think about buying coffee, paying for online content, all those microtransactions.
Exactly. But there are still challenges. Regulation is a big one, and governments are all over the map on this.
We've seen everything from countries embracing Bitcoin to outright bans.
It's a wild west out there. Some see Bitcoin as a threat, others see it as an opportunity. It's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out.
El Salvador's Bitcoin experiment is a great example. It's a bold move, and the world is watching to see what happens.
Absolutely. And then there's the environmental impact of Bitcoin mining. That's a debate that's not going away anytime soon.
It's a valid concern. The energy consumption is significant,
Yeah,
but I also think it's important to acknowledge that any major technological shift comes with environmental considerations.
for sure. And the good news is that there's a lot of work being done to make Bitcoin mining more sustainable. Renewable energy, more efficient hardware, those are all positive steps.
And there are other cryptocurrencies exploring alternative consensus mechanisms that are way less energy intensive.
So there's hope on that front. But let's be real, even with all the progress, Bitcoin is still volatile. It's not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about investing in Bitcoin for the first time?
First and foremost, do your research. Understand the risks. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a young asset class, and the price can swing wildly.
Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. That's rule number one in any investment, but especially in crypto.
Absolutely. And don't get caught up in the hype. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Stick to reputable sources, be critical, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
And diversify. Spread your risk. Don't put all your eggs in the Bitcoin basket, no matter how tempting it might seem.
Sound advice. So we've covered institutional adoption, technological advancements, regulatory uncertainty, environmental concerns, and the list goes on.
It's a lot to take in. But as we wrap up this deep dive, what stands out to you as the most significant takeaway from Bitcoin's journey?
You know, for me, it's the sheer resilience of this technology. It's faced so many challenges over the years, from exchange hacks to government crackdowns, and yet it's still here. It's stronger than ever.
It's a testament to the power of decentralization and the passion of the Bitcoin community. And that community just keeps growing.
It's amazing to see. It's not just techies anymore. It's everyday people, artists, entrepreneurs, investors, all drawn to the potential of this technology.
It's a story that's still being written. The future is uncertain, but Bitcoin has already changed the world in so many ways.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll finally solve the mystery of Satoshi Nakamoto.
Now, that would be a twist ending. But even without knowing who Satoshi is, their legacy is undeniable. They sparked a revolution.
I think that's a great way to put it, a revolution. It's been an honor to explore this revolution with you today.
The pleasure was all mine. Thanks for sharing your insights and expertise with us and our listeners.
Anytime. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Bitcoin. We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
If you're ready to dive deeper into blockchain, crypto, and all sorts of other fascinating topics, head over to https://rankspodcast.buzzsprout.com. We've got a whole library of deep dives waiting for you.
And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest episodes, follow us on social media. We love connecting with our listeners.
Thanks for listening to Ranks Podcast. Advertise with us. Email us. Follow us for updates podcast, and have a great day. Ranks Podcast.